My heart's already melting right now. Can you believe that? Today I'm really excited because we're going to react to a video that I think I'm going to get really emotional with, because I'm a pretty emotional person, and just when reading the title of the video, I think I'm gonna get emotional.
It was a cold autumn evening in Los Angeles when Elon Musk crossed paths with a 5-year-old girl who was all alone on a bus. What happened next is something that will surely melt your heart. It was an ordinary Wednesday. Elon was in town for a string of important meetings regarding his latest venture, something to do with advanced neural networks, no doubt. He had just wrapped up a particularly long day at the SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, and instead of taking his usual private transport back to his hotel, he decided to do something he hadn't done in years: take a simple city bus. It sounds unusual for someone like Elon, right? But that's exactly what he did. He had been thinking a lot about how disconnected he sometimes felt from ordinary life, from the people who live day to day without the luxury of private jets and chauffeurs.
Imagine being someone as rich as Elon Musk is, with all the luxury that he must have, on a random day you just decide to take a bus. That's pretty interesting, honestly, so I'm going to keep watching the video.
So, in a rare moment of spontaneity, he decided to experience what the average person goes through on a daily basis. It was one of those spur-of-the-moment decisions that would lead to something so much more.
Oh, yeah.
There he was, standing at the bus stop with his signature hoodie pulled up, blending in as best as he could. People were too busy with their phones and conversations to notice that one of the richest men in the world was waiting for public transport with them. And to Elon, that was just fine. He wanted to feel invisible, to just be another person for a while.
I wanted to feel like a normal guy.
The bus rolled up to the curb, and Elon stepped on, swiping his card like everyone else. The bus was only half full, with a few scattered passengers, mostly heading home from work. Elon found a seat near the middle and sat down. His eyes wandered out the window, watching the city lights flicker by. For once, his mind wasn't racing with thoughts of Mars colonies, EV advancements, or cutting-edge AI. He was just present. As the bus drove through the winding streets of Los Angeles, the soft hum of the engine created a kind of soothing white noise. Elon hadn't felt this calm in ages. It was a break from the constant rush of his work life. But little did he know, something extraordinary was about to happen. The route took him through a mix of neighborhoods, some affluent, others more humble. The bus made frequent stops, passengers getting on and off, but for the most part, it was a quiet evening. As they entered a less busy part of town, Elon noticed something strange. There was a young girl sitting by herself near the back of the bus, no older than 5. At first he didn't think much of it. Maybe her parents were nearby, or they were just about to get off at the next stop. But as the minutes passed, the little girl remained alone. She was huddled in the oversized bus seat, clutching a small, worn-out teddy bear in one hand and a pink backpack in the other.
That's pretty sad.
Her wide eyes stared out the window, but her face looked unsure, a little lost. Still, Elon figured her parent or guardian must be just a few rows away. He glanced around the bus, scanning for anyone who might be with the girl, but all he saw were tired commuters,
I think she's
completely absorbed in their own worlds. No one seemed to notice her, or at least no one seemed concerned. Something about the situation didn't sit right with him. His heart started to tug in a way he wasn't used to. It wasn't the cold, logical side of him that crunched numbers and built rockets. This was different. It was a gut feeling, a fatherly instinct kicking in. Elon is a dad himself, and the thought of one of his kids being lost or scared sets off alarms in his mind.
If I was on his position too, I would also feel very concerned, because imagine seeing a little girl that's not older than 5 years old being all alone in a bus or everywhere. That's pretty sad. I will be super concerned too. Would you be super concerned too? Or what would you do in his position?
He hesitated for a moment, not wanting to overstep. After all, he was just a guy on the bus. But then, something else caught his attention. The bus was nearing its last few stops, and there was no sign of anyone coming to pick up the little girl. Elon leaned forward slightly, with his eyes locking on the small figure at the back of the bus. She looked so fragile, wrapped in a little pink coat that seemed too thin for the chilly night air. Her teddy bear, threadbare and loved, was held tightly to her chest, a clear sign that this was her comfort in an otherwise overwhelming situation. Still, no one had approached her. Elon's mind began to race. What if she had gotten on the bus by herself? What if she was lost? A sense of urgency washed over him. He, out of all people, couldn't just sit there. He stood up from his seat and scanned the bus one more time. No one seemed to notice or care that this little girl was sitting all alone. His heart pounded as he made his way down the aisle toward the back of the bus. As he got closer, he could see her more clearly. She had the innocent face of a child. But there was a sadness there too, as if she was trying to hold herself together, but didn't quite know how. Elon glanced out the window. The bus was almost at its last stop, and there was still no sign of anyone coming for her. His protective instincts kicked into overdrive. He knew he had to do something. He couldn't just leave this poor child like this. So he thought about what to do. He thought about it from the moment he spotted this 5-year-old girl alone on the bus. But no one could have expected what happened next. It's gonna melt your heart.
My heart's already melting right now.
The bus had reached its final stop, and the street outside was eerily quiet. Elon, now kneeling before this small, lost child, could feel his heart race as the realization sunk in. This little girl was truly alone. There was no parent waiting for her, no one frantically running to her side, just the two of them on an empty bus. For a man who's built rockets and dreamed of colonizing Mars, this moment, kneeling in front of a vulnerable child, felt like one of the most important things he had ever done. He couldn't help but think of his own children, imagining how terrified they would be in a similar situation. The idea of this little girl being abandoned or lost was almost too much to bear. Elon smiled gently, hoping to make her feel safe. "Hey, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm here to help. Can you tell me your name?" he said as gently as he could. The little girl shifted nervously in her seat, hugging her teddy bear closer to her chest. She glanced down at the worn-out toy, as if looking for reassurance, then finally looked back at Elon. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Her name was Maddie. Just hearing her speak made Elon feel a wave of relief. She was brave enough to answer him. He noticed that her small hands were shaking and her cheeks were streaked with dried tears. Clearly, she had been crying for a while before he had even noticed her. "Hi, Maddie. My name's Elon. Are you lost? Do you know where your mom or dad are?" Maddie nodded slowly, then shook her head, her lips trembling as she tried to hold back more tears. She whispered something so faint that Elon had to lean in closer to hear. "I don't know where Mommy is. I was waiting for her, but she didn't come," Maddie said with a shaky voice. Elon's chest tightened. She didn't know where her mother was, and clearly she had been waiting for her, probably for a long time. At that moment, all of Elon's concerns about business meetings, deadlines, and future ventures vanished. None of that mattered anymore. What mattered was helping Maddie find her way back to safety. Just then, the bus driver, who had been watching the scene unfold in his rearview mirror, walked over, looking equally concerned. He stood by Elon's side, with his eyes soft with worry. "Is everything okay here? Is she lost?" the driver asked. "Yeah, she's lost. She's been waiting for her mum, but it looks like no one came to get her," Elon replied, nodding his head. "Poor thing. Should we call the police?" Elon hesitated for a second, not wanting to scare Maddie any further, but he knew they needed help. He couldn't just take her with him. This was more serious than that. She needed to be reunited with her family, and the police were the best option to make that happen safely. "Yeah, we should call the cops. Maybe they can help us figure out where her mum is," he finally replied. The bus driver nodded and stepped off the bus to make the call. Elon stayed with Maddie, trying to keep her calm as they waited. He could see the fear in her eyes, and it broke his heart. He wished he could do more to make her feel safe. To his surprise, Maddie reached out and grabbed his hand. Her tiny fingers were wrapping around his in a trusting grip. She didn't say anything, but that small gesture spoke volumes. Elon could feel her need for comfort, her need for someone to tell her everything would be okay. And in that moment, he made a silent promise to her. He wouldn't leave her side until she was safe. Minutes later, the bus driver returned, followed by a police officer who had responded to the call. The officer was a kind-looking man with a gentle expression that immediately put both Elon and Maddie at ease. He knelt down next to Elon, looking at Maddie with genuine care. "Hi there, sweetheart. I'm Officer Parker. Can you tell me your name?" Maddie hesitated for a moment, but eventually whispered her name again. "That's a beautiful name, Maddie. Don't worry, we're going to help you find your mom, okay?" he replied. Maddie nodded, though she still clung tightly to Elon, who gave her a reassuring smile, and told the officer that she said she's been waiting for her mom, but no one showed up, and that he doesn't even know how long she's been there. "We'll do everything we can to find her family.
I'm glad they came to rescue
Thank you for
her.
staying with her," the officer said to Elon with a determined look on his face. Officer Parker led them both off the bus, and Elon found himself holding Maddie in his arms. She wrapped hers around his neck, resting her head on his shoulder. There was something deeply moving about this moment. Elon, the billionaire visionary, holding this lost little girl as if she were his own. It wasn't a position he was used to, but it felt natural. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, Officer Parker spoke into his radio, relaying information about Maddie to dispatch. Elon stood there, gently rocking Maddie in his arms, doing everything he could to keep her calm. He could feel her breathing slow as she nestled against him, clearly finding comfort in his presence. After what felt like an eternity, another police car pulled up to the curb. But this time,
God.
it wasn't just any officer who stepped out. It was a woman,
Mother.
rushing toward them with tears streaming down her face. Maddie lifted her head from Elon's shoulder at the sound of her mother's desperate cry. In an instant, Maddie's small arms reached out toward her mother, and Elon gently handed her over. The reunion was nothing short of heartwarming. Maddie's mother, who had been frantically searching for her daughter, pulled her into the tightest embrace, sobbing with relief. She couldn't stop thanking the officers and Elon, overwhelmed with gratitude. She explained that she had been running late after a medical emergency and had lost track of time. She had told Maddie to wait for her at a nearby bus stop, but when she didn't show up on time, Maddie panicked and boarded the bus alone, hoping it would somehow take her to safety. It was a heartbreaking mix of fear and confusion, but now, thanks to Elon's intervention, everything was okay. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there," May said. And Elon, with the purest heart, replied,
I'm
just glad she's safe. That's all that matters." As May held Maddie close, Elon couldn't help but notice the exhaustion on her face. There was something deeper behind her tears, a weight she seemed to carry that went beyond just this one frightening moment. Curious and wanting to understand more, Elon asked her gently if everything was okay. May, still emotional, shared the heartbreaking truth. "We lost her father to cancer just a few months ago. I've been working 2 jobs, one as a nurse during the day and another at night, just to keep a roof over our heads. Maddie is alone so much, and I just feel like I'm failing her." Elon's heart sank. He looked at Maddie, a small, innocent girl who had already faced such immense loss at such a young age. The image of her sitting alone on that bus, clutching her teddy bear, flashed in his mind, and suddenly the situation felt even more urgent. This wasn't just a one-time event. This little girl was going through a life filled with loneliness and uncertainty while her mother worked tirelessly just to survive. He knew that the faith itself intervened. The chances of Maddie's and Elon's moms having the same name were quite low. Without a second thought, he turned to May and made an offer that would change their lives. "Let me help. You shouldn't have to do this alone. I'll make sure you and Maddie have a safe place to live, and you won't need to worry about the rent anymore." A couple of days later, Elon bought them a house, a beautiful, warm home where Maddie could feel safe and where May could finally rest.
I'm so happy.
It was a
for
new
this.
beginning for them, a chance to heal and rebuild their lives, free from the constant struggle. Because sometimes the greatest gift we can give is not money, but hope. What do you think about Elon and what he did for this little girl?
Oh my god, what an amazing video. It was pretty amazing. I knew since the beginning that this video was going to be super exciting, super emotional, and it really was. I really love the message at the end of the video that sometimes the best gift that we can give people instead of money is hope, and that's so true. By giving hope to people, we're like changing their life for better to better, and this story is the proof of it. It's so amazing to see such important people as Elon Musk, who is pretty rich, famous, and important, doing such a kind act. And I'm getting pretty emotional because she was such a little girl. She was so young, and we could be in that position. Imagine feeling that loss since a pretty young age. Is so sad to think of that, and Elon thought that too, and he made such an amazing act. And see you at the next video. Bye bye.